Hey guys, Boom here, Boom's Garage. Today we're going to be talking about carburetors on the 27 Touring. So before we get into that, this is one of the coolest and most different carburetors I've ever seen. It's a two-piece carb and it had a vaporizer, and that's actually what they were calling them, was the Holley Vaporizer. I've actually heard it called the Holley Model G Vaporizer. Not sure if that's accurate, but most commonly known as the Holley Vaporizer. And I've got conflicting time periods on when they used them, when they started and cut them off, so I'm just not going to get into that. But really cool carburetor. Before we get into the carburetor, I'll tell you my fascination with carb started when I was 10 years old. My aunt gave me an old dirt bike, Honda dirt bike, and it had been sitting up for about 20 years. And I took that thing apart. I took the fuel system completely off of it, and took the carburetor apart, cleaned it out, cleaned the jets out. I was really fascinated by them. So I've been rebuilding carburetors for a really long time. I love carburetors. When I got this one in, I saw the carb. I'd never seen one like it before. I went, wow, I had to take it off. Talked to the guy who got it from. He said, no, there's nothing wrong with the carb. It's good to go. But I just had to take the thing off so I could take it apart, just so I could see how it worked. I think you guys are going to like it, especially if you have one, you're having problems with them. It took me a while to figure out just how to get it off and get it apart, so check it out. All right, so that's the Lucky 27 Touring. We have upgraded electronic system on there, but here's the carb that we have on it. There's the vaporizer carb. Now you see it's like a two-piece, so it has the carb part at the top. It's got the bowl and all the bottom. Then here in the middle, attached to the exhaust manifold, is the vaporizer, which is really freaking cool. So we have a tube behind here that goes through the manifold. And what goes on here, as the cylinder drops in the piston drops in the engine, it draws the air into the carburetor and pulling the fuel when it comes, a vaporized fuel. So air is going to enter the throat of the carburetor, and it goes down this tube here, this metal tube, down through the exhaust manifold, through the bottom exhaust manifold, down into the bowl. So the air is drawn down through there, and then it pushes the fuel back up through a plate. When I take this off, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's got some channels behind there, so the hot air with the fuel, it vaporizes, and when the gas hits this hot plate, it completely vaporizes, turns to steam, comes up, and it doesn't get into the carburetor until it's already vaporized. So it's a pretty cool system. The vaporized gasoline then goes into the manifold, which creates spark, and then you have a combustion engine. But let's get into it, and I'll show you how it looks on the inside. So to take it off, we're going to have to pull all four of these bolts here, and that's going to disconnect the plate from the manifold. And then we have two more bolts from the carburetor into the top of the manifold. Before we can take it apart though, because the top part of the carburetor is attached to the bottom part of the carburetor with the air tube. The air tube is going through the exhaust manifold, so it's hanging it up. So the way to take it apart is this screw right here, which you see it's round. It doesn't even have any notches on it. It's not hexagon or octagon shaped. So we're just going to have to turn that brass knob, and it unscrews. And when you unscrew that, then the top part will lift off, and then you can take the bottom part and pull it down, because the tube will be free from the top part of the carburetor at that point. Let's watch. All these bolts are 1/2 inch. I love how Ford just made that really simple. Before I pull the last bolt out, we're going to take the needle valve out of its seat. And the way you do that is just turn it until it comes loose from the seat, and then you want to just pick it up, and it's got a bevel on it, and it'll come out of the seat. And when it comes out of the seat there, the whole unit will slide off of its shaft. So put that to the side. We'll clean that up a little bit. Size again. This fuel line off, and we almost have this sucker off. This last bolt. And then I'll show you what we're talking about. We're going to have to turn that brass knob to make it where the two units come apart. You see, it's still attached. Everything's loose, but we're still attached to the manifold by the air tube. So you have to turn this brass nut here, and it doesn't look like a nut because it's round, but it is. I've already loosened it a little bit. Screw it until it comes off. And then there you have it. Here's your vaporizer plate here. We'll get into that in a second. Be sure you don't drop it because it does just free fall by itself. Now you see the spring. I have no idea why there's a spring inside of there wrapped around. Maybe it's to collect more heat. That's the only thing I can think of. But it's wrapped around the air tube, and the air tube just fell, if you heard of them. So let's get into the functions of these parts now. Now this is minus the carb and the vaporizer plate. You see, this is where the vaporizer plate here mounted to the exhaust manifold. You see the grooves. Now I'll explain these in a second. But the fuel actually travels up through this voided area right here. This plate gets scalding hot, and it vaporizes the gas, and the gas travels up that plate into the carburetor, onto the carburetor. And here's the air tube that goes all the way down through the manifold. So this is what's going to hold the assembly to the manifolds, why it doesn't come off by itself whenever you just take the bolts out, because it's still attached at the top and the bottom, the carburetor and the bowl, the tube running through the manifold. Ingenious, right? Again, that's the air tube. The air draws from the bottom, through the top of the carburetor down into the bowl, and then from the bowl it vaporizes when it hits this plate, and then back up into the carburetor again. So air through the tube, down through the tube, to the bowl, turns the gas to vapor. Whenever it hits the plate, the vapor and gas comes up back into the carburetor. So it's a cycle of air and vapor, if you will, going down and then back up. All right, so here's a side view of the entire unit here. And what we're going to talk about now is the feeding of it. So we know that when the throttle opens the throat, you have a flap here, choke flap here, and a throttle flap here. When both of those flaps are open, then you have the air that comes into the engine here, okay? So for the fuel to get into the engine, and it's all the way down here, this is the mechanism that we have. There's an air hole here, it draws air, and there's another one here. Now this one also closes off when you choke the engine, so it would restrict the gas that came into the carburetor, but it would still get air here in this pilot hole, okay? So it's got it draws air. Okay, so here it is in a better angle. It draws air through both of these ports, through that one there and this one here, and it's connected by a duct over to this port, and that's where the air tube attaches. So from there, the air is sucked down the air tube enters into the bowl of the carburetor, and then it's forced up a chamber here into this section, and it comes out of that hole here. The gas, when it hits this plate here, it vaporizes. The air is trying to suck it up into this area. When the gas hits this hot plate, that plate here, it vaporizes. You see the shape of it? So it's going to vaporize, get into this whole section here, and then go into this cavity, which then is threaded to the carburetor. So you have the thread of the carburetor, and then it goes into the engine. So if that makes sense, I'm not a teacher, guys, but here we have it. You have a cycle of air. The air enters through these ports. It chambers over to this air tube. The air is forced down the air tube, and then it pushes gas back up another port to hit this hot plate in the exhaust manifold. The gas then travels up, is vapor by that point, enters the carburetor, and comes back out. Okay, so we have a few other things on this carburetor that's not the norm either. It's this flap here. Look at this flap. It's gravity. This flap, it operates by gravity. The larger end wants to always stay closed. So as the engine needs more air, this flap goes right in here. That's the set screw for it here. And there's a pin that goes all the way through that holds this flap. As it needs more air, it will open this flap, pivot the flap, open it up where it goes like this. The air's going this way. It'll pivot the flap, let as much air as it needs into the carburetor. As it throttles back or you don't need as much, it starts to close off. This is just a way of keeping the air mixture ratio correct. I actually took it out because I wanted to see just what would happen if it doesn't have it, because I've never seen one of these before. I knew what the function was, but I said, okay, with my curious mind, let me take it out, let me see what happens. And sure enough, it runs fine at top ends. I didn't see any problem with it at all, but lower end and idling, it just doesn't want to mix right and doesn't want to idle right. So we're going to take this pin back out. We're going to put this back in, and what this is just a set screw. It's in the throat, and all it does is keeps this thing from spinning all the way around. It's just a set screw, something for this to hit, so it opens up to here, it hits a set screw and stops. It just keeps it from opening up too large. Okay. So we'll get into the bottom part, the float valve. All of that is pretty typical, like you've seen a million times before. Everything else is pretty typical. It's got the needle seat here, which seats down. The needle is somewhere around here. So there we have the needle and seat. Again, the float valve. Is very, very common to an NH or any other. So we're going to clean these up. We're going to check our ports. We're going to check to make sure my float is set right. Looks pretty good. But then we're going to put my air flap, my automatic air flap, back in and clean it up. But again, this is where you're drawing air for the fuel. If you're not getting fuel, if you're not getting enough fuel, you really want to pay attention to these ports right here. That one there and this one here. That's where it draws the air to go to the air tube that feeds down into the bowl. This other one, the larger one, is really just where another set screw was. So this comes out just so you can to help clean out the chamber. But the chamber goes from here to here, all the way back from here. So there's an inside chamber in there from here to here to here. This one feeds a lot of air, but when you choke the engine, it closes that air feed off, and that just helps it where you don't get as much fuel, and it's only going to draw from that port right there. Then make sure you have both of those cleaned. All right. I hope that was explanatory enough. But I like this carburetor. I've never seen one like this. I love the idea of the hot plate to vaporize the fuel. It's cool stuff. So we're going to clean it up, put it back on there, see how it does. Alrighty, just got her back on there. Turn the fuel on. Give it a minute to fill the bowl up, which has been about a minute. So let's see how she does. Beautiful. Great. See how responsive she is. Give it a little more timing. Punch the throttle. A little more timing. Well, I'm happy. Now I'm going to put a air breather on the bottom of that throat. Well, there's today's episode of Boom's Garage with that two-piece carb. Hope that helps some, because I have looked all over for videos to figure this stuff out without trying to spend so much time, but there's no videos that I've seen, so now there will be. Hope that helps.